So who is ready for 2 more fuck-up talks tonight? Yeah? Amazing. Okay, so I am so excited to introduce our third speaker of the night. Her name is Ketaki, and she loves to travel. But what many don't know is that she loves doing high adrenaline activities like bungee jumping, skydiving, parasailing, and paragliding. She's a little bit of a cleanliness freak, and during the pandemic, she actually trained her dog to pick up his toys and bring them back to his basket before bedtime every night. You're gonna have to share how you did that. That's awesome. And she's a big hugger, and she once stood at her university quad with a free hug sign and hugged over 150 people in 2 hours. I'm sure you... Ketaki, the mic is yours, and please share your fuck up.
Thank you. Oh, good evening, everyone. How's everyone doing? Good. So I'm Ketaki Desai. This is not only the first time I'm speaking in 3 years, just like Jenny, but also the first time I'm speaking in Toronto, or first time I'm speaking in Canada, because my husband and I recently moved here. When I say recently, I mean actually 2 years ago, but the last 2 years have been a wash. So that's pretty recent. And we moved here from the United States. We lived in Pittsburgh for 18 years and decided to move to Canada because there was a great president who was in the US. Well, no, I was joking. There were actually a lot of immigration issues for immigrants and people from other, especially from countries like India. And so we decided that we'd come to a country that was a lot more welcoming. And I can say that, I can say for sure that the last 2 years have been amazing, minus the 300 and so many days of lockdown. But we're, I work in the same building, so I'm the Vice President of Business Development for the Ontario Centre of Innovation. And thank you. And 111 actually is a part of the Ontario Centre of Innovation, so that's pretty cool. So for almost the past decade, I've been supporting entrepreneurs, I've been supporting startups, whether that's through the work I did or mentoring, and I've really been like as an investor in economic development and really supporting entrepreneurs. But almost a decade ago, I started my journey as an entrepreneur. And I'm sorry for how terrible that resolution is, but that's the actual email that I had received when I was in graduate school, November 3rd of 2011. And the email was about a competition called the Halt Global Case Challenge. How many here have heard of the Halt Challenge? Okay, so not many. So I'll give a quick overview. So it's actually a $1 million case challenge. The idea is that you, at the time, so in 2011, you worked with a nonprofit. There was a challenge that they gave you, and you could select a track, so education, energy, or housing, and we selected the education track. And you worked with a nonprofit and developed a sustainable, scalable business plan for the nonprofit that you would actually win $1 million for implementing. And so that was the big idea about this competition. And of course, you got to meet President Bill Clinton. So I was this graduate student at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, and I said, you know what? I've never been an entrepreneur. I don't have anyone in my family that's done business, but I'm gonna give it a shot and see if I can actually, do this. And so I remember applying for this competition. The people that I applied with were my project team in my class. I barely knew them for like 3 days. I just put in their names and I said, I'm just gonna submit an entry because you needed 4 people for putting your name in. And so we got into the competition. We got through the first round. We actually went to the Boston regional finals. And so the way it was is that you presented your case study. You went to the regional finals, which were happening in 5 different cities the very same day. So there was one in Boston, one in London, San Francisco, Dubai, and Shanghai. And the winners of that regional competition were going to get a full expenses paid trip to New York City to present their case challenge there, in front of President Clinton and a whole bunch of luminaries. And obviously the person that won got the prize, yada, yada, yada. So we actually won the Boston Regional Finals. That was pretty incredible. I remember feeling really excited and going back and preparing a lot for this final competition. It was months and months of work while still being at school. And by this time, my 3 other project partners were like, oh, I guess we're really interested in doing this now. No, but seriously, we became good friends and we worked really hard at the competition. And I remember it was April 26th of 2012 that we were in New York. And we're at the public library. The New York Public Library is where this thing took place. And it was 500 plus people. It was a phenomenal event where you had, the heads of all these consulting firms. You had all these very, like Hillary, I think it was Hillary Clinton, or there were, so many people that were there. And it was Chelsea Clinton. Chelsea Clinton was walking around, I remember, because she wasn't very famous then. And you just were amazed at what was happening. And so when we were there, we got called up to the stage to present for the final thing. And we did. And we actually won. So we won the education track of the Halt Global Case Challenge in 2012. And we did get to meet President Bill Clinton. And it was a really surreal moment. I always heard that entrepreneurship was really hard and things were going to get really tough. And, we did spend almost a year working on this, and we got to a place where we were now winners of this massive competition. And, there was so much press about it. Like, people really wanted to know what was going on. And I remember the day after the competition, we sat with the nonprofit that we worked with and the heads of this competition, and they said, you're going to go back, you're going to start working on this, you're going to implement it. And I can tell you, we were feeling like $1 million. Like, we were really feeling good. So this is not the actual shot, but when we left the hotel that they put us at to go to the airport in New York, they actually got a limo for the winners to go to the airport. And so I remember getting out of the hotel and sitting in the limo thinking, wow, I have arrived. Like, wow, this is really happening. We're going to do this. And it was, like I said, there was a lot of press. There was a lot of press. People were reaching out. People wanted to write about this. I come from a very, very small family that didn't, make a lot of money from India. That's where I immigrated from. And for me, this was actually in a newspaper in India. And then, there was so much press going on locally. And this is sort of where the fuck-ups start. So I get a call from a journalist in Pittsburgh, and she's like, I knew her pretty well. Her name was Deb Erdley. And so Deb gives me a call. This is a few days after the competition. She's like, Ketaki, we want to write the story. Can you give me the contact info for, the people that ran the competition? She reaches out to them, and she calls me back. And I remember I was pacing in the house because I'm really excited. I'm like, Deb's going to call me. This big article is going to come in Pittsburgh. And she's like, so I spoke to the team, and they said it's not actually $1 million per team. It's $1 million divided by the 3 teams that won. So you remember I told you it was the education, housing, and energy. So all the different tracks actually get the money divided. And I was like, oh, that's not what they told us. It kept saying it was $1 million. It was in that email. It was, and so, now I'm feeling a little sad, but, $333,000 is not a bad amount of money, right? So, okay, sure, that's fine. We can still start a company. We are going to do this. And so by then, we'd sort of started the initial process of incorporating. We got a lot of pro bono lawyers that were interested, because what we were really trying to build is an educational model that could work across the world. And we were pretty excited. And we were really, moving at a fast speed because we were going to get all this influx of money, and we had to sort of show results in a year. And so we incorporated the company, we built our business. We still kept getting a lot of press. That's actually a congressional record. That's the congressman from Pennsylvania, Mike Doyle, who actually spoke about what we did in the House of the Representatives. We had no idea this was happening, but they reached out to us to let us know, because everyone was pretty excited about what we were, what we'd accomplished, because this was a world thing. And as you can see, we were going to be awarded the $333,000, no longer the $1 million. So anyway, so we're in this process, and we get an email from the nonprofit that's supposed to get this fund, and said, they wanted us to take a trip to Miami. That's where they were headquartered. And the name of the nonprofit was One Laptop Per Child, OLPC. I don't know if any of you have heard. And so we're super excited. We're taking this plane to Miami. They put us up in a nice place. And, we're like giggly and thinking, wow, we're finally going to get this money. We're going to start this company. Everything is set up. We've started our meetings. We've told everyone, literally the world knows that we're going to do this. And I remember getting there really, really, really early and sitting in the boardroom. I think they probably invited us at 8:30. We got there at 7:30. We're just sitting there excited, the three of us. We were actually, I remember, this is not the exact boardroom. It took me some time to find that picture, but there was a glass wall behind, and we were facing the window from where you could actually see the sea. And the three of us were sitting on the chairs that was facing the other side. And the CFO of One Laptop Per Child was pacing behind us once he got in. And no one came in. It's 8:30, 9 o'clock, and we're wondering what's going on. No one's really showing up, and we can see this guy who's on a phone call, and he's just constantly pacing, and there was something weird going on, so we wait. And then the CFO walks in after a while, and he hands us a contract, a 2-page paper. Later, we learned it was a contract. He hands us the paper, and he says, well, we haven't really signed up to give you any money. What we've signed up for, as you can read in this contract, is 2 internships for $3,500 for 3 months. Yeah, let that sink in for a minute. We sat there. It was way more than a minute. We sat there just what the fuck? Our congressman reached out to you guys and you said you're giving us the money. Your CEO, we have a quote from your CEO. It's yeah, but that's not what we signed for. Here's the contract, read it. It was 2 pages. It was written in children's scrawl. And it was signed, and it said that's basically what they'd agreed to do. And it wasn't really the One Laptop Per Child thing. It was really how the thing was set up to be. So everyone just got caught up in the media. Everyone got caught up in this excitement of this whole $1 million case challenge, not really planning through the process or the logistics or the massive devastation that it was going to cause the people that are going through this process, building their hopes and dreams on something that didn't ever exist. Yeah, that was pretty crazy. So the few of us that were there, so not all of us went there, we got back, and we hadn't really, done a good job with setting up the company. Anyone that has started a company knows that you never equally divide your equity amongst 4 founders. You never do that. It's such a rookie mistake, but that's what we did. One of the founders had declared himself the CEO and quit his full-time job and decided that he was going to start paying himself from the little money that we got, because now we convinced them to give us that internship money. We said, give us the $21,000 and we'll start the company with it. He started paying himself with it. Yeah, and then things just kept getting worse. And so now you can imagine going back to your school, to all the people that think you've made it this big, going back to your mom and telling her this big dream that you thought was going to happen was not actually going to come true. And honestly, I can tell you, if I think about it now, I don't know how we ever thought of incorporating without ever seeing a signed piece of paper, right? Like you'd think that that's the first thing you'd want to see. You think that you want to see some proof of, well, is this for real? And at least before you put in legal paperwork, you do that. You put in some thought towards building the foundation of your company, not just like, well, we're going to get all this money. It was hard, and I think the biggest thing that I probably learned is that you can get very caught up in what the world thinks and how sexy things are. But that's really not the reason to be starting a company. You want to start a company because you want to solve a problem, not because it's sexy, not because you get pictures in the newspaper, and not because you think that that's what's going to make you famous. You want to start a company because you want to do good and you want to help people. And so that's one of the biggest things that I learned. And I actually found our balance sheet. I don't know if you guys can see the $20,600. That's the actual balance sheet. The name of our company was Lesson Labs. And you can see that the last edit was made November 8th of 2012. I don't know if you could see there through the payroll, the $3,500 and then all the dollars that came out for that one person who decided he was going to pay himself. But that's true, I wasn't kidding. So at the end of that year, we dissolved the company. I called the lawyers and I said, this is not working. You know, we actually tried a little bit. We tried to do it even with the money we had, but it was like, you know, doomed from the beginning. And we didn't do the right things. We were not in it for the right reasons. And so after that, I learned that you have to still find the silver lining. And I continued working in that space in ed tech and was very fortunate to be invited to a boutique consulting firm in New York for building their education technology practice. And this is a picture of us launching our product at like 2 a.m. or so. And I got the chance to actually be the owner of the product for massive contract. And so it was pretty cool that and also got invited to basically charge my fee, like based on what I'd done. So I think that worked out well. The other thing I did, which I can tell you I'm proud, really, really feeling proud of now, is I actually wrote a letter to President Clinton. And I let him know about all the things that had happened and how devastating it was and how messed up this whole thing was, that it was really smoke and mirrors and that it needed to be fixed. Sometimes you don't know the value of what you do and the ripples that it creates. So last year, at some point in my current role, I went to a launch function for a company called Aspire Food, which is based in London. And what they do is they're building the first cricket manufacturing facility for pet food as well as for humans. And they're building it for as a sustainable food practice with artificial intelligence, robotics, a bunch of stuff, very cool stuff. And so I'm sitting in the launch party, and the guy who's the CEO talks about how his team won $1 million from a case challenge the year after us and actually got the money and were able to incubate because someone from the previous year wrote a letter to President Clinton. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. I was just wondering, maybe can you give us a quick and dirty on what was the educational model that you proposed? Very curious.
Sure. So because we were working with one laptop per child, they had a specific computer. And the idea was that you can actually build a model where computers and devices can be subsidized in parts of the world and paid for by the rest of the countries. So using a higher number. It's been a while, but basically the subsidy would come from people in countries like the US and the West, and then a community of technology challenges would be created to help students actually connect between countries like India, Kenya, for example, with countries in the West. Welcome. Yes, at the back.
I guess what I wanted to ask is, through all the fuck-ups as well, like, what was your why? Like, what brought you from that to here?
I'm sorry, why should...
No, what's your why? Like, what keeps you going? What kept you going through all of that?
So actually, that's how I should have ended. So after doing this, thank you for asking that question. After doing this, I was part of a few other startups, and at some point realized that I'm really starting to not have that why, and that's really when I started working in economic development, and then got into an investment fund. And that was almost a decade ago when I felt that I didn't have it in me anymore to constantly keep on that path of failure. And you have to wake up every morning and you have to tell yourself that, no, this is the right thing. And tomorrow is actually my last day at my current job, because I've decided to pretty much jump with both my feet. I have nothing planned. That's one of the reasons why I decided to sign up for this. I didn't know if I was going to get selected, but I wanted to share with everyone that I'm hoping to go back to being an entrepreneur. I'm shit scared, but it's probably because I've been trying to play it safe for so many years. And I know that that's not really who I am. That's, the entrepreneur, the person that wants to go fix things is really who I am, and I'm done playing it safe. And I'm gonna try to go back and fail.
Oh, wow. I feel like that was the perfect way to end it. Thank you so much for sharing your story, and we really wish you luck, and we'll see you back here if you do fuck up.